everybody. Welcome back to Accepting Reality. I'm here with Jake as normal. Jake, how's it going?
I'm cold. But good.
Yeah, everyone's cold. It was 19 degrees last night. It was
Happy
cold.
holiday.
I, it's
Happy holiday.
I
It's
need
freezing.
I need it to be this cold like end of December and then January when like nothing. There's no more holidays. You're just miserable. The cold just makes completes the ensemble. Right now, it's too happy a time. It needs to be warmer. But
Yeah, it's like it's winter and snow and everything else in between. Seems like people deal with it,
yep,
and then once Christmas is over with,
everyone
people
hates
hate
it.
the snow.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep. At least we're
January
not in
comes and it's
Buffalo.
miserable. Oh
Buffalo,
yeah,
while we're recording,
there.
is 6 feet of snow.
Yeah, that would be. I guess that's just it's one of the things you deal with when you live there, but
I
that's a
couldn't.
lot.
You're not going anywhere for weeks.
Well,
Or
yeah,
not weeks, but
especially if like a lot of times they get all that snow,
yep,
and then they'll get a few days of like 50 degrees and it all melts, and then they have flash flood warnings.
yep,
So
yeah,
you can't avoid it.
yep.
So, but that's what happens when you live there.
I know the Great Lake. I'm similar. I'm not as close to a lake as Buffalo is to Lake Erie, but we do
Yep.
get. We're still in the lake effect region here, where my wife and I live outside of
Uh-huh.
Chicago. So occasionally
Yeah.
we'll just randomly get 2 inches of snow. Like, yep, just from the lake. Like, oh,
Yep.
okay.
Exactly.
So, well, I think the big thing that everyone is talking about, and we might as well join in, is we had a midterm election. We had, you were singing Happy Holidays. The next line is the holiday season. Well, we have now an election season in America because you can vote from September 30th to November 8th. That still counts the same. Um,
Exactly.
so there was no red wave. I'm sorry. Wah, wah, wah. There was no red wave. You were more realistic, and your expectations were a little more tempered, which was probably the wise choice. I thought the Republicans were going to get the House and the Senate, not by a massive like we're going to have 60 seats in the Senate and 240 in that. No, I thought they would just have
Yeah.
like a 52-48 or 51-49 in the Senate, and then like 230 in the House, which is really 12 more seats than the majority. Which it looks like they'll be close. They're probably going to end up at 224 or 225, which is good. That's really good. The Republicans outvoted the Democrats 53 to 49 million, I think, which is good. Not that the popular vote matters, and it should matter. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I'm not a fan of pure democracy. That's tyranny. Um, so overall, I think there are some good things, but I also think that the Republican movement messed up in a lot of ways, and also obviously Arizona. There's so many things. I was sharing a bunch of it to the DJ Media social pages of the voting machines stopped working, and they all were conveniently in Republican districts. And this, I'm not making up. I'm not accusing of widespread election fraud. YouTube, chill out. I'm just stating what I saw in the videos from the poll watchers' mouths themselves. So whether it was legitimate or not, and I hope it was because I want to go back to a place where everybody believes in the results. It doesn't help that those things don't help. They really don't.
Yeah. There were too many question marks
Yeah, again,
and
there were too many.
just weird things that happen. I mean, it's like especially after 2020, I
Mm-hmm.
think that we were a lot more on guard about,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, what might happen. And then you hear the stories on that Tuesday and election day where polls are somehow closing early because their
Mm-hmm.
machines are broken
Or
or
they
they
ran
ran
out
out
of
of
paper.
paper or every little crazy thing in between. So it's like I think a lot of people were like, "Oh, here we go again."
Uh-huh.
And the surprising thing was to me is that all of these polls that were having issues, and it's always in states that are key swing states. It's not like California. It's not New York. It's not
Mm-hmm.
Illinois. It's like in Arizona and Michigan and Pennsylvania.
Wisconsin.
And I think
Yeah.
the surprising thing was that it happened before anything even occurred with results. So, like
Yep.
in 2020, there were some little itty bitty stories that would come up and say, "Oh, that
This didn't work.
in Michigan that they were having problems with their machines." But then the major suspicious activity became in the middle of the night when
Yeah.
the votes started to be, well, this is going to be Trump by a landslide. But
Yep.
this is before anything started.
Uh-huh. And yeah, I don't know. We can't confirm there was fraud, like people actually changing votes or cheating. But when you don't keep things transparent and you don't keep things well run, I mean, it's 2022. Think about it. You and I have recorded how many hours of footage from 500 miles apart? You tell me you can't
Yeah.
get your voting machines to work properly on the one day that it truly matters? I just don't find that plausible. I don't accept that as an excuse. How do you run out of ink in 2022?
Yeah,
Like,
I said it on. I said while the votes were being counted on Tuesday, when your wife and I were doing the live stream,
yeah,
and I said that somebody made a good point. They said American Idol can count 200 million votes
yep,
during the commercial break, but somehow in 2022 we can't electronically count votes where they're saying before they even get the full number, states
yep.
were saying, well, where this is going to be, we might not even get
No,
it
till
until the
Thanksgiving.
Saturday. Like it's insane, and I don't know
Yeah,
how we got to that point, but
yeah,
it
that's
seems like it's only come up in these last two, this year and then 2020, which were some of the more important elections in terms of decisiveness with the country
the
and
impact.
issues, things
Yeah.
like that.
I think so too, and I think it also. Someone else quoted this: the longer an election takes, the less people have faith in it, and that's actually proven on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah,
Obviously, the Republican, more conservative side of America has less trust in our elections right now. I don't think I'm making a false generalization. Most people, when they saw the votes were taking now over a week, they're still counting in Arizona. By the way, as a recording,
yeah,
this is 11 days after the election. They're still counting. That can't happen, and that
yeah,
cannot happen. I don't care who you vote for or what you support. You should not want that because that gives either side a chance to mess with things.
right.
And they
That's
also, I saw something, and this was from the Arizona head of elections, like the Maricopa County Board of Elections. They said their process is they count mail-in votes last. Does that make any sense to you? Because mail-in votes could be arriving 2 weeks to like 3 months before
right,
election day.
right.
Why aren't those already counted?
I
Doesn't
don't
that
know.
doesn't that make doesn't that sound weird to you?
Is there either in 2022 or in 2020 was there a election, a state, I should say, that had questionable voting activity that resulted after all the smoke disappeared, that resulted in a Republican winning?
No, I can tell you
See,
right now.
that's the interesting thing is that it's like okay, once or twice I could see okay maybe that somebody screwed up and didn't have enough of this
Yeah.
or machines came down to this, but to have this happen so much where listen, it's always a Democratic person that somehow wins
Uh huh.
is that's when you start to get you don't even have to be Republican to think that that's weird. It could just be
Yeah.
a big coincidence, but that's too much of a coincidence,
Two.
and it's
Yeah.
something that's so important.
And it's infinitely more important. Somebody made a good point. If you ask a citizen what's more important, your money or your vote, they're more likely going to say their money, right? Because it's
Yeah.
what they need. But if you ask a congressman or a lobbyist or any sort of person in the political sphere who gains power over that, they don't really care how much money you have as long as your vote goes for them. And that's
Well,
so
yeah.
true is that there's a disconnect between our our upper class of politicians, because that's what it is now. Very few politicians are middle class anymore. Because I
Right.
mean, House of Representatives salary is $175,000 a year, um, and then you have the regular working class people who yeah, they want to vote and they have an opinion on which way the country should go, but ultimately they care about their bank accounts more, and I don't blame them. It's important.
Right. Yeah, and I think that has something to do with issues that are more primarily structured around what state they're in. So, like, if you live in a state like New York or California, your your views on whether or not money is more important than your vote is probably going to be a little skewed because everything's expensive in those states, and it's always
Yep.
been, but it has nothing to do with the last couple of years.
Yeah,
But if
everything
you live in
is.
like somewhere in the Midwest where just I mean, like I was talking about this with somebody at work the other day. Easy things like eggs and fruit
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
meat are so expensive. Not even just gas, because gas
It's a
is in
whole
its own
nother thing.
category.
Yeah.
But those are more important than somebody who lives in another state. So I think it's important because it's by state. And it's
Hmm.
a different basis because you never know what people are going to be centered around. And some people are more they look at the big picture. They look at Roe v. Wade, the decision that the Supreme Court handed down in June. They look at immigration. They look at overall health care. I mean, it's interesting. Each state has its own primary objective when they vote.
Yep, they do, and that's the beauty of America. I think that's a great thing. I think that's a strength, not a weakness. But I do think overall our country needs to clean up the elections, and we should not have to wait more than a day. I'll give you one day for like abnormalities
Yeah,
to get results, but no, everything should all but be settled by midnight on Tuesday. So so basically midnight on Wednesday after the election, after the polls close. You have 6 hours, and it's 2022, and you can't tabulate votes. It
yeah.
just I refuse to believe it's that daunting of a task. I do. I just don't.
Well, especially in counties where they can predict,
Yeah.
they have a good idea of who's going to win anyway. So,
Yep.
why it takes so long, and it. I don't know. It baffles me, but there may be an alternate reason behind it, but it's still it's insane.
It is. And with all that said, I think it's good to look at now these. I looked at exit polls, which, for those who don't know, exit polls are surveys that you're given by certain media companies. Now, anyone can do an exit poll. It's not like you have to be a registered corporation to do one. And they are usually on your way out. There's somebody there who asks you to fill out a survey or gives you a link to a survey, and you fill out just basic info about yourself, your race, your gender, your marital status. And you don't have to provide any of this. This isn't by law. And then for now, what they do is for absentee voters, they give you a phone call. And for early voters, they sometimes do both. They try to get you by phone or do that. But anyways, it's just trying to give people an idea of who is voting for what. Where is the country going based on certain factors that we can kind of all relate to. And I like looking at this because I think it shows a lot about our country. So the one I was looking at most recently was from NBC News, and it was last updated November 10th. So 2 days after the election. So a lot of people, I'm assuming, filled this out, right?
Uh-huh.
The first one, obviously, I think Roe v. Wade factors in this big. Male and female. Just no other factors, just male or female. 56-42 in favor of Republicans for men, 53-45 favor of Democrats for women. And
Okay.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The next one, based on ethnicity, 58-40 in favor of Republicans for people who identify as white, 86-13 in favor of the Democrats if you identify as black or African American, 60-39 if you're Hispanic or Latino in favor of the Democrats, 58-40 in favor of the Democrats if you are of Asian American descent, and 58-37 if you are American Indian. And then the last 2% of the voters is 52-42 Republican, and they chose other as their,
Okay.
yeah. They broke it down to white versus non-white. I don't know why they do this. It's almost like they're trying to, start something, but it's 58-40 again for white, 68-30 for non-white voters in America in favor of Democrats. Again, that's not surprising. I think that's pretty much always been.
Right.
I mean, in the last 20 to 30 years, I could say. I don't have the numbers offhand, but
Probably since I would say after Reagan.
yeah.
That's would be my guess
And then
for Democrats and minorities.
here's a big one for me, and this one hits home because I'm in this group, and this is by age. So ages 18 to 29 voters. So the youngest you could possibly vote up before you turn 30. 63% Democrat. Now, I sent this to you, and you were surprised it wasn't higher. You had a much less optimistic view of the youth of our country, and I don't blame you. I guess I was just hoping that the movements of like Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk and the Young Americans for Freedom Act and all these college Republican groups forming would have made a bigger impact, but apparently I'm wrong because this is an overwhelming majority of people and I wonder how many, I wish they did this, were 18. How many people did the Democrats get right away to vote for them? Because those are new voters into the mix. Those don't. You're not; those are new people into
Yeah.
the pie that just go to the Democrat vote that will basically tip them in key races, right? Because it's a group that the Republicans won't get a percentage of if they're just all registering and going Democrat. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I don't. I well, I would have guessed it to be more because so many people now. We talked about it before, but so many kids just go right to college when they're 18, whether or
Yep.
not they have a plan or not.
Yeah.
I don't think that's. I think it's a horrible thing, but
Absolutely.
um,
Yeah.
but they go to college, and so you look at the overwhelmingly democratic professors and just colleges in general that are in the country. So I would have thought, well, if so many people are going right to college and they're seeing the professors talk about um, Trump or talk about maybe DeSantis or all these high profile Republicans, and they use them. I mean, I know people that were in school at Ohio State,
Hmm.
and they would have to lie and talk as if they're liberal
Hmm.
on a paper, or else
Yeah.
they weren't going to get a passing grade.
Yeah.
So I would have just thought, just because of all that, that number's got to be higher, and it
Yep.
might still be, just that these are just what the people that have been, surveyed and things, but
Yeah.
it's still a high number, and I'm not surprised, but I guess I kind of am in a way.
Yeah. I see that as more of, even if, like you said, you expected it to be higher. I think regardless if it's higher or even lower, it's very concerning
Right?
because those people are the future. Whether we want to admit it or not, the people that we call snowflakes and we call babies and oversensitive and no accountability and no responsibility and no work ethic, somehow, some way, if we all want to keep living in the United States of America, they are the future. And
Yeah.
if what they truly want, see, another thing is, I think, you said they go right to college at 18. I don't think many kids are getting real educations anymore. And I'm not saying that every teacher is just an indoctrination and brainwashing. I know teachers who do mean well. I truly believe that. But I think some teachers are. They have an agenda. They want to push a certain agenda, and that's fine. You want to do that. I don't think you should be allowed to teach, but that's a topic for another discussion. Um, but I do think that our curriculums and other things have been really dumbed down to where they're not learning to think critically. Because if you think critically, it means you think with the future in mind in some cases, or you think more based on, well, how does this affect everybody, not just my own personal gratification? And those things are lost, and we're in a culture where I want to feel happy, give it to me right now.
Yeah. I also think that one key point is that about 20 years ago, I would say, they did a poll for universities
Hmm.
on how many of their professors identified as Democrat or Republican.
Uh-huh.
And at the time, 20 years ago, so this is 2002, we're just after 9/11. Bush is the
He's sending
president,
us to war.
and they said it was about at the time it was about 60, a little over 60% were Democrat.
Okay.
So that was 20 years ago. Now the problem with that is, and this I think would be the problem if it was skidded more toward Republicans as well. But people were saying, well, why is that a problem? Well, the problem is that all these kids are going to grow up to be jobs that we today are experiencing. So all these people that you look at that are journalists and writers and people on the news, they grew up with an agenda
Yeah,
that was leading toward the left. That's why it's so hard to find a down the middle news source now. It's virtually impossible
it is.
because it's either they're on the left or it's somebody that's trying to combat those people on the left, and so that they're to the right.
Yep.
So that's why it's dangerous because you have now it's even more. I'm sure these professors are even more tilted toward the left in terms of the amount, and so somebody would say, well, why is that bad? Well, in about 20 years, you're going to live in a world where things are even more influenced by democratic believing people
Yep.
because that's all they grow up with. That's all
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah. And I would say now, from my experience in college, which I graduated in 2019, I think it's 75-25. I would say three. I think one out of every four of my professors was openly conservative in the classroom, and that was it.
That sounds about right. I would say
Um,
that's a good guess.
and I went to a small Catholic college, but I don't believe they truly withhold the Catholic faith. But I will not. I will. I'll save that again for another episode. Um,
Yeah.
Another thing that I think drove this young surge, and do you know who David Hogg is? Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, wasn't he the guy that was the he kept trying to shut down the Second Amendment? He
Yeah,
was a
so
kid
he was a
that was at the
kid in the Parkland school that got
yeah
shot up, but he wasn't even at school that day, but he acts like he was traumatized.
yeah
Um, and he's basically an anti-gun teenager.
right
Very, very passionate, testosterone-filled young man with him, I'll tell you. He actually shared some research. For every Gen Z vote, which is people born after 1995, I think,
okay
um, they canceled out every boomer vote for the Republicans. So basically, what he's saying is that the Democrats have a new army, and it's the
yeah
Gen Z. And he's right. He's right. And the biggest thing that they did this election cycle, because usually turnout is way down in the midterms for the party that has the presidency. That was not the case this year. They offered student loan relief, and then
yeah.
conveniently the next day, I mean, not even joking, the next day a judge struck it down. So they bought votes. I'll say it. I truly believe that was a planned announcement by President Biden and his administration to rev up the young voters who might not really care because there was a TikTok trend on election day, but now because they could get $10,000 in free money from somebody else, it's now important to them because free stuff. I truly feel that was a vote buying scheme that they knew would not hold up in the Constitution in the judicial system, because right now it has currently it's void. It doesn't matter.
Do you think that for we'll just use the example of the student loan thing?
Yeah.
Do you think that somebody who's between the ages of 19 and 24, let's just use that, so they're at least a year into college,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that they know or even consider like how the government is going to pay for that $10,000? Let's say that's completely passed, it's going on, and hey,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna get $10,000. Do you think they even know like the ramifications of, well, if that happens, it's because of A, B, and C,
Yeah.
or do you think they just think that the government's just printing it out and giving it to them?
They think the latter, because back to my point, no one's educated anymore on how a lot of these real life things work. They just think, oh, they just erase it like on the chalkboard,
Yeah,
and then it's not owed anymore. No, the money was paid by the government to the school for you to go to college, and now you have to pay the government back. That's the whole concept. And the government's revenue that they use to pay your loan is your and mine taxes.
yeah,
That's the only way the government makes money. The government sells nothing. The government offers no services. They tax you with the threat of imprisonment as their revenue. So
yeah,
the system, to try to explain it, government gets taxes from Americans who may or may not have gone to college. We don't know. It doesn't make a difference. They're taxing you. Government then takes that money and allocates it. One of the things they allocated to is the student loans, or FAFSA, Federal Aid Student Financial Aid. It's something like that. I never got money from it, so I never cared.
yeah. I know what you're saying.
Then through that, the schools get their tuition fees, because the school doesn't let you go to college or let you go to their classes unless you pay for it, because they have to pay teachers and pay for the buildings and pay for all the other things there. So
Right.
the people don't understand this cycle. So then after you graduate college, the thought is, now that you're making a salary, college is obscenely overpriced, and you should not go unless you know exactly what you need to do and you need a college degree. I went to college. I have a bachelor's. Trust me, if I wasn't going for a business degree, not worth it. And
Yeah,
back to my point is that now that you are graduated and you should have a job and you should be bringing in income of a higher rate than a McDonald's employee, your job is to pay that back. And you don't accrue interest while you're in school. So I don't want to hear people say that, oh, they just pile on while you're in college. No, my loans did not accrue a dollar of interest while I was in school. They started accruing 2 weeks after graduation.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's that simple to me. But
it's even more dangerous now, I think, because if you have somebody who's, I'm trying to think of a degree that would, let's just say, I'll just
art.
use this. No, let's just say a business degree.
Oh, okay, accounting.
Okay, but somebody, no, like just business administration.
Okay.
But somebody decides that that's a degree they want because it's pretty general, so
It
they can do a
is.
lot of different things,
Yep.
which is fine, you know. But they graduate college, and let's say that they were one of those people that had to go to one of the best schools, so they go to Ohio State. Well, now they're $100,000 in debt.
Yep.
Okay, well they're 24, let's say 23, 24. They have this business degree, and in my job, I've seen people graduate college with a degree in healthcare and want to start their career in healthcare in a job at my place of employment. Now, the job that they do to get themselves off on a good foot is not a job that pays $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year. I mean, it's a job that pays you like $16 an hour. So
that's like 30 before taxes.
That's fine if that's your job while you're in college. But now they're just starting, and they're not even to the point yet where they can barely live on their own. Not to mention inflation. Not to mention gas prices and food, like we were talking about before. So, how long does it get until somebody realizes, okay, I could have been 18, and if I didn't know if I really wanted to be in healthcare, I could have been 18. I could have gotten this job at this place. I could have been, let's say, a driver for UPS. I could have been a plumber, an electrician. I know somebody who got a license to do home inspections.
Okay.
And he does. So you buy a house, and then you have somebody come in and do a home inspection.
Yeah, I just had that. Yeah.
He started his own business doing that.
Okay.
He gets like, I don't know how many per home, but he's like, yeah, sometimes I do 2 a week, sometimes I can do 25 a week if I really want. And he's making like $80,000 before taxes because it's just by his own. He didn't go to college.
Yeah.
Okay, but he's way better off than the person who spent $100,000 who's in debt to get a business degree. But it's these teachers in high school and the government who tells you have to go to college because that's the only way you're going to get a job of any sort of relevance is to have a college degree. Now, some college degrees are great, and you're going to be thankful you have it throughout your whole life.
Yeah.
But there are some degrees in art, liberal arts, psychology, history that make no sense. International relations. I mean, like you're never going to get a job with these. It's never going to happen.
It's not.
And if you do, you're not going to make anything until you're 20, 30 years into your field.
Yeah. And the word that I think sums it up the best when it comes to these degrees, they are impractical. You know, my wife always says, what's the practical thing to do? And going to college for a degree that doesn't set you ahead of people is impractical because it's an investment that you're not going to see a return on for many, 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 many years. And it's not even a guaranteed return.
If you had to do it again, would you still be an accountant?
I would, because there is still a lot of career path to it, and I also think that accounting is becoming more rooted in technology, and I'm pretty good with technology, so I think that I will be able to be sustainable. And it's also, I mean, my first job out of college was $50,000. That's like the base entry level accountant in America, and I think that's a really good starting point for a 22-year-old. I would, yeah. But I would not tell. For example, you know, I wouldn't tell my kids I would tell them if you're going to be an engineer, if you're going to be like an accountant or a finance advisor or something like that, you should go. If you're going to be a teacher, you need to go, you know, because of all the state laws and stuff like that, you need to. But other than those 3 degrees, or maybe a doctor, like you need to go to medical school and stuff like that, and a lawyer. So I've got 5 areas where I would support my kids and I would want them to go to college, but other than those 5, just off the top of my head, I would be hesitant to encouraging them to go unless they had a set plan. Like, I need this degree because I want to get into this field. I know it doesn't make sense, but I know this field exists and I can get into it. Okay, fine. But if you're just like, I really like history, so I'm going to go spend 4 years learning about hieroglyphics and what Thomas Jefferson ate for lunch in 1776. Well, that's not going to get you a job. I think that's
Yeah.
amazing knowledge, but it's not going to get you a job. That's why I did a political science minor, because I loved all this stuff, but I didn't think I could get a good job in it. But
Well,
I needed extra classes, so that's what I did.
yeah, and also too, if you can have somebody who knows what they're gonna do, and if whether or not they understand if they're gonna have a good job, um, they can pay for it. While I mean, you can get whatever degree you want as long as you're not gonna get student loans that are 50,000 or more.
Yeah.
But also too, I know I didn't mean to go off on the subject of this off the election, but you said doctor real quickly. Do you know how much I was talking to one of the doctors at work last week. You know how much the average student has when they become a doctor? How much debt they have?
I'm
You
gonna
know what it is now?
I'm gonna say like 250,000. I'm gonna go high.
300 grand
Holy
is the
cow!
average. So, and she said, she goes, back in the day when things were private practice and you didn't have these big organizations for healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
he said that like you could become maybe like let's just say pediatrician or just your family doctor,
Yeah.
and you make a good living. He goes, now you almost have to become a specialty or a surgeon. He
To
goes,
make money.
because
Yeah.
family doctors make 150 a year. He goes, but if you're 300 in debt and you have a family,
It's
you're
over.
never going to make
Yeah.
any headway on that. It's going to take you 30 years to do it. So,
Yep.
but yeah, 300 grand. Can you imagine being 30 years old, and albeit you have a salary that's 200,
Yeah.
but you're 31, 30 years old, and you look at your debt and it's 300 grand.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, just looking at my mortgage is a lot, but that's different. A mortgage is an investment, but it's still like when you see you owe this much, it's like, oh boy.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
300 grand. I thought that was crazy.
that's insane. And we can lead right into that. So the next part of the exit poll I wanted to talk about was the level of education. So those who have never attended college, or attended college but did not receive a degree, and then even those who have an associate's degree, so a 2-year junior college, community college degree, all were at least 51% Republican. So it makes sense. Working class, manual labor people. I think that demographic the shift has been completed. I know the Democrats try to say they're for unions and stuff, but it's not it. Union bosses vote for Democrats, but most people that I know in unions vote overwhelmingly Republican. So I think that shift is all
Right.
what happened. Um, but then when you get into college educated people, bachelor's degree, 52-46 Democrat. Advanced degrees, which means masters, MDs, PhDs, JD, 57-41 Democrat. That's crazy to me because aren't those people
Yeah.
supposed to be smarter? And I'm not trying to diminish people, and that didn't sound good. But wouldn't you want to keep more of your money? Like if you work that hard in school and got a massive degree and you're making like 150, 250,000, you're voting for people that want to raise the taxes on you? Doesn't that seem counterintuitive and counterproductive to your life?
Yeah. I wonder if it's. Do you think that they're smart enough to understand why laws are the way they are, or maybe they like? Do you think that they're thinking, for instance, oh, I'll vote for them because I believe them when they say that the Republicans are this, or even worse, they say, yeah, I totally think that if I vote for this person, that they are going to help corporations that I work for just for my own. Like, do you think they're doing it selfishly,
Oh,
or do you think
absolutely.
they're just stupid?
I think a little bit of both. Because I do.
Yeah,
Um, because somebody who has a master's in women's studies is not going to know what and you know what is like these laws mean. Like they're just not because it doesn't specify which degrees. I guarantee you, if you narrow down the type of advanced degrees to doctors, lawyers, and finance, they'd be overwhelmingly Republican. Just,
yeah.
just
Social workers and
just
everything
as
else.
yeah, just a suspicion because all the people that I knew in college who were getting masters and yeah, social work is a big one. The college I went to has a very nice social work program for a small school. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, it was a bastion of leftism. Like Karl Marx would
sure,
have loved it. I mean, he
sure.
would have had a blast in there. It's just I part of me thinks that the media control is still obviously there, and the influence from the mainstream media still works on many people who claim to be very intelligent. And you can believe whatever you want. I just want people to find the truth and help America come back to the truth. But this is 5741. They're supposed to be the smartest people of our country. They said we want
Yeah.
higher taxes. We like $4 on average for gas. We like funding. I mean, I think we've sent. Have we hit 100 billion yet to Ukraine? I know we're getting up there.
I don't know. I think it's close because I know within like 2 weeks we had sent 40 billion. So I wouldn't be surprised
Biden
if
sent that
we
2 days after the election.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's an interesting stat though. That's almost more interesting than the amount of people who are like in college, that age range who are voting Democrat. Because I think that like I think if you take the group of kids who are in college, and you say, hey, those are the ones who are voting Democrat, and I could say, like we were talking about, oh well, it's because of college universities, blah blah blah.
Yep.
Then you also take the people who are more educated. You think, well, those people are the ones who should be the opposite, who understand why things are the way they are.
Yep.
But it's like there has to be a middle ground between both, both groups, because it's like both ends of the spectrum are voting the same way.
I would like to see this added to an exit poll, and it never will because it'll show the truth of America. Who did you vote for, and are you a business owner? Because I think that might be like 90-10 Republican. I'm not. I would be. Well, I'd be surprised if it was close to 50-50. Because most people that I know that run their own business that have to incur all the regulations and all the payroll and the Obamacare and actually try to get people in the door, they're all Republicans.
Yeah.
All of them. And
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you're probably right.
And like I'm not talking Amazon, because big corporations benefit from leftist policies because it takes away competition. It squeezes out the competition. I'm talking like the local grocery store chain that has 4 places around 20 miles of your city. I'm talking about the local credit union or local bank. I guarantee you they are 100% way more conservative than you'll ever see of a bigger business, because they feel the pain of these laws, so to speak. You and I are not as much of an effect to it. We feel inflation. We feel the prices being raised. But we don't feel like this new payroll tax went down, and this new anti-discrimination law went down, so now you have to do this, or something like that, where it impacts their livelihood, where it wouldn't as much the average voter
and their employees.
Yes.
It's because that's business owners are very attached to their employees. So if there's something that's a negative to their employees, then they're not going to like it. Plus, if it makes it harder for them to run their business, it's going to make them harder to recruit for their business, which is
a problem.
A horrible issue for them, because if you can't recruit, you're never going to be able to compete.
Yeah. So that was just an interesting thought I had about these exit polls. Now, last one I want to get to is gender by marital status. Now, this one, I think, if you follow politics, you knew this was coming. Married men, 59-39 Republican. Makes sense. Men, usually they're the providers in that situation. They want lower taxes. They want more freedom. They want their kids to be safe. Makes sense. Married women, 56-42. Again, I think that's pretty normal. I think that's going to stay normal is for the foreseeable future. Non-married men, I was surprised by this one, 52-45 Republican. I was kind of surprised by that one. I thought it would be closer, or maybe a little bit Democrat, because a lot of non-married men don't have to provide the way a married man does, so it skews their view on the reality and effects of things. Because if you're non-married and you're making $65,000 a year, it doesn't really matter how much inflation goes up. You're pretty much going to be okay.
Yeah.
Non-married women, this is the killer. So this was 23% of the people polled. 68% of them were Democrat. There's 3 words that summarize that: Roe v. Wade. That's it.
Is there a way to find out if that demographic was it any higher or lower in like 2020, the 2020 election?
Let me see. I'll just type in 2020 exit poll.
So I wonder if it's better in terms of Republicans. Then Roe v. Wade, you could definitely say. I'm just curious, what it was.
Yeah. Okay, so this is CNN's 2020 exit poll. Now, I know what everyone says about CNN. I just pulled the first thing up. That's All right, let's see. National results, no filter. Marital status, please. That's what I need. Not religion among white voters. I need marital status. All right, we're going to try that again. We'll go to NBC News for this one. We'll use NBC for both. Try to keep it similar.
There you go.
All right. Okay. Income. Do you work full time? Are you Protestant or Catholic? Nope. All right. I'm struggling. They definitely didn't break it down like they did this year. I'm trying to just find marital status, but my guess. Oh, here it is. I'm done. It's right in front of it. All the viewers saw it. It went up by 5%.
Okay, there you go.
So
that's a lot.
But here's an interesting one. Here is actually what also changed. Non-married men swung from 52-45 Democrat in 2020 to 52-45 Republican in 2022.
Non-married, okay.
Non-married men, so single men, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And then the married men and women, looking at it, increased Republican. It was 55-51 for Republicans. For married men, 55, married women, 51 Republican. And then in 2022, it was 59 married men, 56. But the big swing was the non-married women. It just completely skewed the overall thing. I mean, not a major swing, but so everything went more Republican except for non-married women, which went heavy left.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely key issues that you could say drove those numbers. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Roe v. Wade, I think, was a big one because so many women just, they just looked at the face value of everyone saying that it's taking away women's health care, which is absolutely not what it is.
No, it's murder. So, we're not gonna.
Yeah.
And abortion. This is which one of these 5 issues mattered most in deciding how you voted. So this is 2022. Number 1 was inflation, and it was 71% Republican. Duh.
Yeah.
Number 2 was abortion. 76% of Democrats, 76% of people said were Democrat. So of the 27% of people who put abortion, so that's the number 2 issue, 76% of people voted because they wanted to be able to kill babies.
Yeah, that's sad.
Let's not sugarcoat it. That's sad. Yeah. That's really sad in America.
Just have them watch an abortion and see what they think afterwards.
Yeah,
that's what I would love to see. I would love to see somebody who says, "Yeah, that's totally fine." Have them watch an abortion and see how they think afterwards. But that's crazy. That just kind of tells you where the morals are.
We don't have many morals. Yeah. I'm going to look now to see in 2022 to compare, and then we'll close. All right. I wanted to see if the 2022 exit polls had religious beliefs, because in 2020 I'm disappointed that this is a stat, but it is. In the 2020 presidential election, so take it for what you will, whether you think it was 100% legitimate, 100% illegitimate. I don't really.
Right.
I don't really. This doesn't make a difference. 50. So the number 2 reported religion was Catholic. Oh, I'm sorry. This was the number one. Number 1 in 2020 on these exit polls. The number 1 reported, like, what religion do you identify with, is Catholic. 25% of the exit poll. Okay. 52% of people voted Democrat and said to be Catholic.
Those are the
twice a year.
Yeah, right. Go on Easter and Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, you and I are Catholic, and we are. I would say, without trying to brag, we are devout Catholics. We go to mass every Sunday. You have a role in your church, so we are very much devout Catholic. We fully believe it. We fully embrace it. I'm raising my kids Catholic. My wife converted to Catholicism. It is going to be a part of me until I'm no longer here.
Yeah, exactly.
There is no way, if you are truly invested in the Catholic faith and you read the Catholic faith and you read the catechism and you're instructed, that you can vote Democrat. It's that simple. I'm not.
Yeah, there's there's in the catechism, the precepts of the church and what makes a Catholic a practicing Catholic,
Uh
and
huh.
being a Democrat is not one of them. But
No.
it's like a seventh one that's been uh, formally put in now, because it's like you can't. How
Yeah.
can you say that you're a Catholic if not even just abortion too? I mean, just like basic other rights like vaccines. That's a
Yeah.
huge one. Immigration. That's another huge one. Crime. I mean, how can you say that
Yeah.
you're a Catholic when you agree with the people or you vote for people? Like we said before, if I have somebody who I'm voting for who's an absolute right, like he's all the way right, he's perfect in everything, but he believes in abortion, I can't vote for him.
Yeah.
I just can't do it.
Yeah.
It's
It's a non-starter. It's no compromise.
there's no it's non-negotiable.
So that's really disappointing. And maybe we'll do a full length episode because we've hinted at it. We've done little segments and episodes about how you cannot be Catholic and Democrat. You know,
Right.
I think that would be a fun thing to dive into, and we'll bring in actual scripture. We'll bring in actual catechism, actual what's the word? Encyclical. Is that what it is? No,
Encyclicals. Hey, if you have letters from popes,
that's what it is.
sure.
Yeah, yeah. But but some of the popes have written encyclicals about abortion and about other things that can get us banned on YouTube and how they're wrong. And
Yeah.
you can't, as a Catholic, if the Pope has clear and a valid Pope has clearly said this, well, now you gotta do some soul searching. So
Yeah, exactly. You look in the mirror.
you gotta look in the mirror and do the best you can. But that's disappointing. As a devout Catholic, that's disappointing. So sorry to end on a disappointing note, but we have rambled on for plenty of time now. Um, Yeah, that was the 2022 election. Not as good as it could have been. I think that's a good way to put it. I think there's potential, um, but it was squandered. Maybe because everybody votes by mail now, so you got to get people to vote before debates. I don't know the strategy. I'm not a political strategist or analyst, uh, but overall, 2022 election was not the best results if you're a God-fearing, conservative, patriotic American. Um, but there's
Yeah,
still hope. The world's not over.
it'll be interesting to see how these results from the election stats that you cited, how they compare to what happens in 2024.
Yeah, and we'll definitely compare them because I am curious to see what the shifts were because we saw just a few of them and they were pretty significant in ways. But that's for another show. Thanks everybody for listening. You can find us DJ Media on Facebook and YouTube. That's our main uploading and social media. We're on Twitter as well. We're building that up. Gonna get that. We're gonna pay that $8 a month. Hi Elon. Uh, we'll have some fun with there. Um, and our podcast, if you just like the audio form, is on Spotify and iTunes and Amazon as well. So Amazon, we just upload our library there. So again, DJ Media, YouTube, full-length podcast. Also, clips come out every Tuesday, Thursday. We splice up a few segments from each podcast to give you a shorter, more focused take on things. Some people don't like to listen to 40 minutes of someone talking in their ear. I get it. So YouTube there, Facebook, you'll find links to all of our podcasts and posts and shared articles and such. Twitter as well. So Jake, anything else to add before we sign off?
No, I think I'll say that while the elections didn't go what we thought it was, and I didn't think it was going to be any kind of major red wave, but we'll take what we can get. But I'm curious to see how these next 2 years, the people that were voted in, is going to impact what's going to happen in 2024. So we'll see.
Plenty more to come from us. Thanks everybody for listening, and have a good rest of your day.